We off in this place, catching vibes, sit back and we blaze in the sky like I'm out of space.
What's going on, Cigar World? What's going on, Cigar Enthusiasts? This is Jack, the Cigar Enthusiast, and I'm happy to be at your fingertips today. Man, we got an excellent show in store for you today. The one, the only, Rocky Patel will be joining us today, and I'm super excited about this one. But before we go ahead and get started, make sure you click that like button, that subscribe button, to turn on that up. And then also, if you're new to the Facebook channel, go ahead and hit that like button. Also, don't be the only one to watch this amazing content at your fingertips, man. Go ahead and hit that share button and get this out to everybody. This is a rare occasion. If Rocky is doing podcasts or shows like this, Rocky would not be able to travel the world and go to his Green Bay Packer games. So he don't do this often. So I like to call myself a little special, I guess. But you just got to catch him at the right moments. Man, I hope everybody is having a good day, man. The Eagles won today. Not only did they win, they destroyed the Jets. I mean, it's only the Jets. I get it. Don't nothing to go crazy about. But hey, at the end of the day, we did get a dub. So that's major. Outside of that, some housekeeping things. This will be our last episode for this year. We're gonna go ahead and start our holiday stand down period, and then come back with a banger here in January. So we're excited. We're actually adding a co-host that we're not going to disclose just yet. You just got to stick around and watch us what all the things that we're doing, because it's going to be amazing. So that's going to be simply great. Should be a fun time as well. Outside of that, man, everything else is going great. We're going to get this thing going. Rocky is a very busy man, so we're not going to hold him up on our end. Our guest of honor for today, the man, the myth, the legend. I mean, this guy went from, what, quote unquote, a boutique cigar, and is producing one of the hottest cigars out. We're going to dive into one of the hottest cigars I feel like he put out this year here in a second. But introducing our guest of the hour, Rocky Patel. What's up, champ?
How are you, Dapper D? Great to be with you. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me on your great show. I know we've been trying to schedule this for a while, so I'm glad we could make it happen. I'm sitting outside because I'm in beautiful, sunny Southern California, but they can't smoke anywhere inside in LA. So I happen to be sitting out here. It's actually freezing cold in my friend's yard, and enjoying this cigar, the ALR, with you.
Man, that is, I think, I said something in my introduction that I think is true, and I don't think a lot of people understand. A lot of people don't get your face on podcasts. Like, I don't know how many you do a year, but it's not as much as everybody else. And I understand you're very busy. Like even though for us, we try to schedule this about two times now. Yeah. It just, at the end of the day, you got so much going on with fighting against the legislative things that they're trying to impact on cigars, and everything else going with your awesome company, man. So you never can keep up with you, right? So now you're in California. Where are you gonna be at tomorrow?
So you're not gonna believe it. I was supposed to stay here for a couple of days. I did an event in San Diego yesterday, but I got to take the red eye out tomorrow because I have an emergency meeting with the governor of Florida, Governor DeSantis. So myself and George Padron and Carlito Fuente and Corey from Oliva are flying straight into Tallahassee. I'm taking the red eye so we can meet with them, so we can discuss all the issues that are really pertaining to the premium cigar industry. Most importantly, the overreaching, burdensome, egregious FDA regulations. And we want to let him know that the premium cigars industry is a very important part of the state of Florida. And, I think he can work with the federal government to try to save us from being under attack and wiping out most of the industry.
Yeah. I think I had Josh from PCA on 2 weeks ago, and I think it just amazes me the level of, and kind of ignorance in the writing of some of these laws, and how they're not really diving in and looking at the health concerns, and they're stating all of these little different things are happening when using cigars, but nobody has a scientific reasoning behind it, and it's not being proved by science. But then now we're going into all these lawmakers. The lawmakers are going in and saying, hey, this we need to get this. We can get all this money from here. We can get all this money from here. But in reality, it's not really looking at the big picture of what it'll do to companies like yourself, and especially brick and mortars like me. I mean, we're both.
Yeah,
really
I mean, the reality is that I don't think much of this is ignorance, especially in part of the FDA. Mitch Zeller, who runs the tobacco division on part of the FDA, he's had books that have been published, and he clearly wants to banish tobacco from the face of the planet. Unfortunately, he does not distinguish premium cigars from other tobacco products, especially cigarettes. I can understand why they wanted to attack the cigarette industry, because the cigarette companies were manipulating the tobacco and were doing all these different things. But the difference with premium cigars is that, first of all, you don't have youth access. Kids are not smoking them. They're not addicting. People enjoy them occasionally. You don't see people sitting outside an office chain smoking handmade cigars. Secondly, there is no science to show that premium cigars pose a health risk to the public at large. And finally, our usage patterns. I mean, we smoke them occasionally. We don't inhale them. We don't manipulate the tobacco. We don't add anything to it. There are no chemicals. It's very natural. The only thing that's added to tobacco is clean water in the curing and fermentation process. So it's a very, very different product, a very different luxury lifestyle cottage industry, and it needs to be treated that way. And so, we've won the first two cases in court, in federal court. It was a judge that was appointed by President Obama who ruled in our favor with regards to warning cases, warning stickers. The judge ruled that premium cigar boxes ought not to have the ridiculous warning stickers because you've not shown and presented any evidence to the court that premium cigars possess a risk to the public at large. And secondly, he said that we have a First Amendment right to talk about the heritage of our families, the vintage tobaccos, the different unique type of aged tobaccos, just like they do on bottles of wine. So that was a big win. And then second case, he basically ruled against the FDA again with regards to substantial equivalence and chemical testing and constituent testing. And he said that the rules pertaining to premium cigars were way overreaching. They were intended for cigarettes and other tobacco products, and they ought to look at this category differently and go back to the drawing board. So, it's a long process. I think that a lot of people up in Congress and the Senate, big tobacco basically controls them. And so, until we're literally put out of business, I don't think we're going to see any action. We've had bills move through the House, got them in the Senate, and the last minute of language gets pulled out. So the political system, it's I don't want to use the word corrupt, but I will say that it's troublesome when you spend so much time in Washington to see that all people care about is staying in power and getting money, and not about doing the right thing to fix the problems.
I think that's crazy. Like, but in reality, I think we all knew that too, right? The fact of the matter that they're trying to. You have major senators that came and get their state together, and out of a financial bind that is still trying to implement ways to get more and more taxes when there's other things to tax. And I think one of the things that I talked to Josh and Glenn about is, we're getting wins. I think 2 years ago we got a definition for a cigar, which now we can start defining the pathway. To my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you would definitely know a lot more about this, but there's an actual study being conducted by a college that's supposed to prove what cigars do to your health and different things of that nature. Am I mistaken about that?
Well, I mean, what's really happened is, yes, we did get a definition in place to define what a premium cigar is, and pretty much it's 100% natural tobacco, wrapper binder filler, rolled by hand, no filters, no tips, and no chemicals or anything like that. I'm giving you the general definition, but Judge Maida laid out the definition in his last ruling. And what's happened is the judge went to the FDA and said, you need to go back to the record based on all the evidence that's been presented by the industry and by the antis, and look at that evidence and come up with a new rule on how you're going to treat premium cigars. Well, when you looked at all the evidence that was submitted in the comments that were submitted by all the cigar companies, that was submitted by all the anti, like the American Cancer Institute, Tobacco Free Kids, everybody, you saw that the evidence was on our side, that the youth access, youth usage issue was not there. The evidence showed that an average cigarette smoker starts smoking around 13 years old. The average cigar smoker starts at 26 years old. It showed the consumption patterns were very, very low. There was no real science, epidemiology, or anything to show that premium cigars possess a health risk. So what the FDA and Mitzeller did is, instead of relying on this evidence to come up with a new rule that made sense, he decided to completely abandon the process, and he formed a new committee of scientists that are now going to analyze premium cigars. And if you look at all these hand-picked people that have been picked by Mitzeller, they're all tobacco zealots. They hate tobacco. They have all published books to show why tobacco kills. And all the money that they received for these books has been given by the Tobacco Free Kids, American Lung Association, American Cancer. So these are hand-picked people who are not objectively going to look at this category, but are going to come up with some nonsense and create a ridiculous amount of science that really has no logic and has no weight. So I really feel that once that comes out, the real bad rule comes out from the FDA, finally Congress will wake up and say, okay, you know what? They're going to wipe out an entire industry that's been around in history for a very long time. It's a small cottage industry. It's going to create a real mess in Central America with immigration. You're going to put entire cities out of jobs in Donley, Esteli, Santiago, and Dominican. A lot of unrest, and it's going to wipe out so many jobs in this country. So I'm hopeful at that point Congress actually wakes up and sees the light at the end of the tunnel, because right now they feel like, oh, these guys are surviving, they're okay, we don't need to do anything. And you know, we've been handcuffed for the last 10 years. We can't grow new farms, can build new factories. We can't figure out how much inventory we should get, because we have no idea what's going to happen with the FDA. It's so hard to do business just being handcuffed. So it's been really annoying and troublesome.
Yeah, you know, and I realized, you know, from listening to you at all the I can't think of the word right now, but all the different segments that they had at the PCA, of how passionate and how knowledgeable you are on the subject. What fueled it? So what was the change outside of like everything that's else out there?
Well, I mean, you know, listen, I started with nothing. You know, I started out of my garage with 3 employees, and I feel like I've sacrificed the last 25 years of my life, giving up family, friends, relationships, everything to build this company. If I had a passion, you know, everyone told me I'll never make it. It's the fear of failure that has driven me. You know, I wanted to prove everybody wrong, that I can actually, you know, build a brand and build a quality brand. And at the same time, you know, when I found out that some of the bigger companies were proposing a tax, and they were going to agree to a $3 per cigar or $10 per cigar S-chip tax, it made no sense. And I, you know, never been to Washington from the perspective of actually meeting congressmen and senators. I had no idea how to even engage with them. I wouldn't even know where to start. And I literally talked to Jeff Borshowitz from Corona Cigars in Orlando and said, Jeff, we got to go up there. I smell a rat. There's something going on here. And so we went up there, and slowly we discovered that basically there were certain companies who were trying to take control of the legislative process and take market share by making sure the smaller companies could not, family-owned companies could not compete. And so at that point, I was awakened to, you know, to this whole thing. It reminded me of the movie Silkwood, where they're going up against the nuclear power plants, Norma Ray with the unions against, you know, what was happening. And so I was literally standing by a Coke machine in the Senate cafeteria because I'd see that all the senators would get their lunch and come by to get water or a soda or something. And the first one I met was Senator Harkin, and I said, Senator Harkin from Iowa, sir, please, I need your help. You know, this is about 500,000 jobs in Central America. This is about 350,000 jobs in this country. It's going to wipe out an entire industry. And then he made time for us that afternoon, and then he got us to Senator Reid, and the ball just started rolling. And then I just kept going out there and building and cultivating these relationships, knocking on doors, sharing the story, telling them the truth. And that's how it started. And I just kind of got so absorbed and involved with this passion because I just saw that people were taking advantage of people that really didn't have the skill set and didn't understand the big political wheel. And I saw how this entire industry was going to be gone because certain people and certain companies wanted to take advantage of the political situation and advance their own agenda and throw everybody under the bus. And that's really how I got involved in all this.
So, Rocky, are you saying that like other cigar companies was agreeing to $3 S-chip taxes? And
well, I'll just say this, that yes, there were certain companies, the multinationals per se, let's call them that. I don't know how else without naming names, but there were people that were agreeing and blessing a $3 tax per cigar, and they can afford it. And they knew a lot of the smaller companies, independent, family-owned companies, and otherwise would not be able to stay in business, and that's how they would gain market share. And that was just, I'm giving you a small part of this
small spigot,
whole Ferris wheel, right? And that's where it started. And then after that, the FDA and more regulation. The more regulation it is, the harder it is to comply for the smaller companies, the independent companies. Well, the big guys can afford to do it. But and listen, Philip Morris did this with cigarettes too. They were all for all this regulation on cigarettes, and now it's biting them in the butt because they realize that they open up Pandora's box, and when you open up that box and you give a little, the government keeps adding more and more and more, and now it's difficult for them. They're spending billions of dollars and attorneys to comply and go through the headache of all the compliance issues that they have to go through. And that's kind of what we faced. A company if you look at the current FDA regulation as written and was written, it would have cost me $55 to $60 million to comply with all the chemical constituent testing based on all the different SKUs that we have. They wanted us to test our bands and see what the bands test the boxes, what the wood. I mean, what is the sense of testing the wood? It's cedar. The band is paper. It's ridiculous. The cellophane. Then every single cigar had to be tested for. I mean, they're all different. They're made by hand. They're never going to give you consistent results. And we're proud to make our cigars. I'm proud to make my cigars different than the Padrones, and the Padrones are proud to make theirs different than the Fuentes, and on and on and on. We take pride like a chef to have different recipes. It's not a cigarette that's made exactly the same by machine, and every cigarette's exactly the same. You can't do that. It's made by hands, by people. They're different. The tobacco changes from year to year based on the climate, based on the soil, based on Mother Nature. It's impossible to make every cigar consistent. And that's where the logic was flawed. And they didn't understand the product that they were actually trying to regulate.
Yeah. I think that's crazy. But I mean, we can go on and on about this particular.
Yeah, let's
topic.
talk about some better stuff. It's a happy Sunday, and I don't want to get depressed.
So Rocky, man, coming from the background that you came in, you really built this enterprise and supported, really fathomed this dream of yours. Tell me some of the characteristics it took to get you to the spot that you are right now in life. And
well, I mean, listen, I was very driven. I've always been driven in any challenge that I take up. I try to think outside the box. We wanted to make cigars that were unique and different. I remember when we came out with the Super Fuerte. It was a real rich, fuller-bodied cigar in the late 1990s. At that time, everyone was making milder cigars. at most medium-bodied cigars, and we had wrappers that we were using from countries that people never use, like Costa Rica. We were using fillers from countries people never use, like Panama. And our packaging was a little loud. It was different. It was very powerful. So it was a combination of that plus working very, very, very hard to make sure we had the most consistent quality. Every single leaf was properly fermented, properly cured. We were making sure on our blending process that we were consistently using the same tobaccos with the same fertilization, curing, fermentation. We made sure that we limited our rollers to making 250 cigars per pair so that they could bunch them properly. Every single cigar was draw tested. So I knew I had to make great quality, consistent cigars. And having started as a fledgling in the business, I never had bad habits from the beginning because it wasn't inherited from generations and generations. So I had the opportunity to travel to Dominican, to Nicaragua, to Honduras, meet with all the manufacturers, see what people were doing right, what people were doing wrong, and pick up the best standards and the best habits and implement them. And then I also pounded the streets. I burnt more shoe leather than anybody. I went to 600 cities in 700 days, built relationships with consumers, with retailers, worked diligently to learn, see what they liked. And so, it's been a journey. Certainly made my share of mistakes along the way, and I've learned from it. But it's been a great journey, and I've had an incredible fun meeting so many great people along the way. And I have such a great bond with my fellow manufacturers also that I enjoy it, and I can't imagine doing anything else besides possibly being the head coach of the Green Bay Packers.
Now, you love your Packers, don't you?
I do. That's why I'm here today. They have a bye.
That's why we was able to schedule it, because they had a bye.
Yeah.
Hey, so one of the things that I'm more interested about when it comes to you, or let's not say interested, but admire the most is your dedication, is your persistence, and is your drive. Like, I talk about these things with a lot of people constantly. Like, when you're in business and you want to be great in business, you have to master those three characteristics. Now, everything along the way, you're gonna learn. You messed up on this tax year. If you would have did this better, this would have been better. Production wise, if I would have did this better, this would have probably had been a better outcome through the trials and tribulations. But one thing that I am admired by is, even at your current age, or in your older years versus me, okay, and your older years versus me, you just don't stop, right? And you always see Rocky. I tell anybody, man, if you're starting a brand and you're not moving around like Rocky was, it's probably gonna fail, right? Because I take that back. It's probably not gonna fail, but you're never gonna probably reach your highest potential and things of that nature in your business, because it requires the groundwork. So, kind of putting that all into one, what motivated you outside of heritage, outside of being one of the best manufacturers? What was a personal motivation for you that when you woke up in the morning, this is what kept you going?
Simply the fear of failure. I was so scared that I'd worked all these years, sacrificed so much of my time going to law school. I worked full time during the day. I didn't want to be a starving student. So in the evenings, I would leave my job at 5 o'clock, drive 45 minutes to an hour to law school, eat a sandwich on the road, be in the law school from 6 to 10 in class, be in the library from 10 to 1, and then spending all this time studying for the hardest bar exam in California, and getting through all of that, and then now throwing that all away to run the cigar company. I certainly didn't want to fail. And every day I wake up and I don't let the foot off the gas, because it's the fear of failure that always drives me, because it's easy to get up here, but the fall is long and hard from there. So that's what motivates me every day that I wake up.
One thing that I've studied when it comes to Rocky Patel is y'all process. Y'all have a very meticulous process. Obviously through trials and tribulations, You have developed those characteristics that got you to this point. What was the hardest thing to learn that you have quote unquote mastered today?
Well, I think, blending, I love blending cigars. I always had a good palate for food and for wine and such. And so I trusted my palate. And, we never make cigars and sit in the conference room and go, gosh, what are we going to launch? What's going to sell? What are people going to like? What's the price point? Is it a mild cigar? Is it a full-bodied cigar? I literally go out there and make hundreds and hundreds of blends with different types of tobacco and play around. And finally, out of that, I might get 3 cigars and we go, wow, they're good. And then those 3 cigars, I'll change the primings of the filler. I might play around with the binder and let them sit longer. Sometimes they get worse, sometimes they get better. So that process I enjoy very much. I think the hardest thing, though, is to really learn the science of how properly to ferment the tobacco. And when I talk about fermentation, for the audience, it's the natural biological decomposition of tobacco, all that rich fertilizer that tobacco plant absorbed in the farm, the nitrogen, the boron, the potassium, the magnesium, to make that plant nice and strong, you have to bleed that out. And the way you bleed that out is simply over time. You take that tobacco, you add nothing but clean water to it, you put it in a pile that is about 12 foot long, 5 foot wide, 2,500 pounds of pressure from the natural weight of the tobacco, and every 10 days you rotate the pile, top to bottom, bottom top, inside out, outside in. When the temperature gets to about 135 degrees Fahrenheit, this process goes up, and the higher the priming, the higher the tobacco in the tobacco plant, it's retaining a lot more fertilizer, a lot more strength. It's very oily, and that takes about 4 years. When you get to the middle, 3, 2. But, you have to have the good raw materials to be able to ferment it. And it was very difficult for people to trust me, for a new guy to come in business. Let's say the Plasencia family, who's one of the biggest growers of Cuban seed tobacco in the world. Let's say the Oliva growing family out of Ecuador and some others. It was very difficult for them to say, hey, yeah, we'll give you, 200 bales of this and 300 bales of this. And, they had supply chain orders for decades with certain companies that they worked with. And I didn't have the money at that time to be able to pay for all this, but to say, hey, just trust me, I'm going to pay you back, just trust me, keep this tobacco for me, I'm going to buy it, So we had to work up to getting a little and a little more and then reinvesting. So it took me at least a decade to earn the trust of some of these great farmers to be able to, and now we have some great relationships from all of them. We have, at any one time, we're holding on to tens and tens of millions of dollars of tobacco to be able to work with and ferment to keep making these consistent cigars over time.
So you said your favorite part is blending. What's the hardest part about blending?
Well, I think the hardest part is being able to get consistent raw materials all the time. 1 year you may have great tobacco, and the next year you might get a lot of rain in that same farm. Or you might get too much sunlight and the tobacco is too strong. So every year to year, the tobacco evolves because of Mother Nature. You notice when we buy a wine, a bottle, every vintage is different, even though the grapes are from the same vineyard, right? One vintage is always rated much higher than another vintage. Well, the same principle applies with tobacco, but the consumers expect the blend to be exactly the same. If they're smoking an edge or a vintage or a decade, they want the taste to be the same. And I get the emails when they feel that their taste is different. Well, guess what? The crop changes over time. So what we do, like chefs or like crazy chemists, we go in and we play around with the priming. So if the tobacco is milder the next year, then I'll use a higher priming to make sure that it delivers the same profile. So it's not a perfect science, but we're always re-engineering and reworking the blend to try and get it as close to the intended taste it was supposed to have when we first released it. But it's not a perfect science, but we try our best.
Now, just kind of simplifying this a little bit, especially for the viewership, when you talk about primings and playing with the primings, explain that a little bit.
So basically, a tobacco plant has 3 different sections of how we identify the flavor and strength of the tobacco leaf. The top third of the tobacco plant has the richest tobacco, the heaviest tobacco, and most dense in viscosity, and it's called lijero. The middle third of the tobacco plant is medium body in texture, medium body in flavor, and it's called viso. And the bottom third of the tobacco plant is the thinnest tobacco, the mildest tobacco, and it's called seco. So when we make a blend, we'll take a little bit of viso, lijero, seco, depend if you want a mild cigar, medium, full, you'll work with these 3 sections. And so the problem with that is, let's say I want a medium to full body cigar and I'm using a lot of lijero. If one roller gets leaves from the very, very top of the tobacco plant, classified as lijero, another roller gets leaves from the same plant, just a little lower, also classified as lijero, you're going to get inconsistency in the taste of the cigar for the same box, same blend. So what I do is I take that plant and I make it and I break it down more defined characteristics. So when we start picking the tobacco, it's the first priming, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all the way to the 8th priming. So when I'm making a blend, I'll say I want the 8th priming, excuse me, from particular farm in Esteli, Nicaragua. I want the 7th priming from particular farm, Hamastran, Honduras. 6th priming from particular farm in Costa Rica. This way, every single cigar has the same leaf from the same plant with the same fermentation, same fertilization, same curing to guarantee consistency from box to box, cigar to cigar. That's one thing you never see in the Cubans, because one day the tobacco comes from here, one day from here, one day from here. There are all these little farms and whatever comes and they just kind of put it together and it's all over the map.
Absolutely. So speaking on how the different ligeros is from the 8th to the 6th. So that's how they come up with the different understandings of ligero. So they say, I don't know what all the characteristics is. I'm nowhere near a master nor even a student that can have the conversation about the priming and stuff yet. But those have different names, right?
Yeah, so basically the plant, like I said, is 3 sections. It's lijero, viso, and seco. And within those sections, we break them down into primings to make sure that even in the lijero, you have different strengths of lijero. Even in the visos, you have different strengths of visos, and in the secos, you have different strengths of secos. And that allows you to more narrowly define the consistency of creating the cigar, time after time after time, so it's not all over the map.
So pulling that number 8, the 8th priming from Esteli and then Ecuador and everywhere else.
Yeah. So every time you're pulling the same leaf from the same farm with the same curing, same fermentation. So it keeps that cigar very, very consistent, and that's how we manage to keep our blends consistent over time.
So that is how you pretty much come up with your recipe card in a sense.
Absolutely. And listen, we've taken thousands of people down to our factories in Nicaragua and Honduras over the last 20 years. I think I've taken more people down there than anybody in the premium cigar business. Yeah. And for all you listeners out there, anytime you want to come, it's an amazing trip. You learn a lot. You simply pay for your airfare. We take care of everything else. Once you're there, we take you to the farms, to the curing, to the fermentation, to the box factory, to the factory. We lay out all the different tobaccos. You get to make your own blends. Wine and dine you. The food is great. It's the best lesson you'll ever have learning about tobacco and cigars, and you'll have much greater appreciation of how much work goes into making a great quality cigar. Because literally by the time you plant the seedling in the ground, the time you get a cigar in a box takes 4 to 5 years, and 300 different hands touch the tobacco.
What's the best time to come to Nicaragua?
So I would say the best time is probably January through April, May, because that's when all the tobacco is in the farms, it's in the barn, it's in the curing barns, and you see the entire process.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's something that, like me personally, I always told my tobacconists that's something I'm gonna do for them. Just bring them out there so they can better understand, right? I think a lot of people smoke cigars and don't really understand the complexity and the focus that goes into this. The science is behind it, and reconfiguring the seeds to get different products and different things of that nature. I think it's just crazy the amount of stuff goes in it, and I can see why people say, hey, you're never a master. You're always learning type deal.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much work, and I learn as I go on. It's amazing art, and there's so many moving parts to making a great quality cigar. And if you miss any of the steps, it can really have an impact on the quality of your cigars.
Speaking of quality of cigars, you came out with some fire this year now, and not saying that you don't, but I'm just saying the Disciple, the 60, and the white label. Jesus, what was
Yeah,
the
we got some winners, and age limited rare.
ALR?
So we only made 2,000 boxes of that. Then we got the new Disciple, which is out. That's been a gem.
Yes.
The white label just came out last week. And so we're excited. In the 60, I turned 60. So the beauty about the 60 and the age limited and rare is that we literally, I'm to a point in my life that we've got so many different blends, and I want to just do cool, creative, fun stuff. So we decided to buy the building next to our factory in Esteli and turn it into a giant humidor. And I said, why don't we make some cigars and put them away for 2 years? We're not going to smoke them after 4 months, 14 months, 18 months. We're just literally going to put them under lock and key for 2 years. And that's what we did with the 60 and the age limit and rare. And they've been home runs, and those blends smoke amazingly. They've been really popular. So we're excited about that. And then the Disciple is one that has a San Andres wrapper from Mexico. It's got fillers from our farm in Esteli and Condega. That's a little more medium to full. But again, the age of the tobacco shows in that cigar. It's got a lot of flavor, yet balanced. And then finally, I wanted to make a cigar with the Connecticut wrapper that has some flavor and some attitude. Because most people usually smoke Connecticut cigars and they're just completely mild. And we decided to launch the white label we call the Connecticut with attitude. And it's got a lot of character, a lot of flavor. It's still got the creaminess. It's still got that nice buttery taste, but it certainly has some nice complex flavors to it.
Now, Rocky, I need you to call Mike Wasp and tell Mike that I need all my back orders for white label, because I cannot keep that on the shelf. He keeps sending me these little 1 boxes, 2 boxes. I said, send me the bundles.
The problem we have there is, with this supply chain problem, we were supposed to have our bands and our boxes in July. And, we have all the bands printed in Holland. And then, they were supposed to deliver in July, and then they call us and said, oh, we can't get the ink. You've got this special rose gold ink. We can't get this paper. We've chosen this special paper. And so everything's slowly starting to trickle in. And we literally had to air freight the stuff in, and we're air freighting the boxes from Nicaragua back to our warehouse in Naples. It's costing us a lot of money. So we'll have some containers hopefully coming pretty soon, and we'll get it out there. But they've been very popular and in demand.
I told people, I said, look, if you haven't tasted it just yet, you're missing out. And literally, I had customers, like legit regular customers that always come in running to the humidor to try to get the last one. I'm like, yo, just calm down. It's not crack, guys. But the more of the story, man, people are raving about it, and I just want to let you, man, job well done on those blends, man. You did a good thing on that one. And then, so kind of, what was the motivating factor for the white label? Because that's not really your thing, like.
No, I'm usually not a mild cigar guy, but
you're not.
And that's why I said, there's really no mild cigars coming out of Nicaragua, and it's nice to have a breakfast cigar, but I want a breakfast cigar that's mild, but it's also got a lot of character and a lot of flavor. And so it's really, really hard when you add some of the Nicaraguan tobaccos to a Connecticut wrapper, because regardless of what you try to do, the cigar ends up being, spicy or peppery, or ends up being a little fuller than you want. So it was a lot of work to get the balance of these aged tobaccos to deliver character with a lot of complexity, a lot of flavor, but at the same time keep that creaminess and keep that buttery note profile to the cigar. Yeah. So it was a challenge. It took us 3.5 years to make it.
Hey, look, when I smoked it, I was like, I said Rocky must have hired somebody else because this is not what Rocky.
No, I do all the blending myself.
No, I know. I'm just being sarcastic, but I was like, it was no way that this was Rocky on those. Now on the other end, Disciple was all you. I was like, this is Rocky to the T. It tasted like the I don't know. It tastes like it was like more of a combination between like, I would say maybe like a quarter century, and maybe like, and we're just talking recent blends, maybe a quarter century and like a number 6. I couldn't put my finger on it, but the notes and the complexity of it was very similar, but it still had its own definition to it.
Yeah, I mean, the number 6 is another one that's been a home run for us. You know, the beauty about that cigar is made out of Honduras. But what I like about tobacco from the Honduran Valley, Jamastran, it's got a lot of sweetness to it. So it's got that Corojo wrapper. It's got a lot of tobacco from the Jamastran Valley in that region. So it's got a lot of sweet profile, sweet flavors, sweet characteristics. And the quarter century is one of my favorite blends. It reminds me of a cigar that you used to get years ago from Cuba, because the old Cuban tobacco, when it's properly cured and properly fermented, really has that rich, sweet flavor that you can't duplicate. And I think that quarter century has a lot of that character and a lot of that flavor.
That cigar is definitely one of my favorites. Outside of that one, I typically will always run to. Well, it kind of depends, but ALR. I obviously have some stock on ALR. You know, that world championship was a really good smoke too. I wasn't
that's
able
got
to,
a little spice and pepper, and that's a good
little
cigar.
A little. So Rocky, what's one of your favorite rappers to work with, or better yet, what is one of the hardest what's been the hardest rapper for you to work with?
Well, the hardest rapper to get by far right now is Connecticut Broadleaf, from the Connecticut River Valley, for a number of reasons. First, less and less farmers are growing it because they find it very, very difficult and expensive to grow. Secondly, I think that the last year they had a really terrible crop. And then finally, most of that wrapper is being used up by the machine-made companies, and a lot of it is going, they're using it for the blunt wraps, they're using it for, all the other things, because it's very much desired in the cannabis industry. So there's a huge shortage of that wrapper for our premium cigar smokers. And then, as far as working with the wrapper, I think the hardest wrapper to work with is the Cameroon, because it's so thin, it's so light, it's so fragile that it tears very easily. If the cigar dries out, when you ship it to places like Arizona or California or anywhere out west where it's very, very dry, the cigar cracks really quickly. It's very supple, but that wrapper's got such sweetness to it and it's so unique. So I would say that the broadleaf is the hardest wrapper to get, and the Cameroon is the most difficult to work with.
Your portfolio of cigars is so massive, and just over the years you have had your cigars that you put out, your limited editions and all that stuff. Every single manufacturer to this part, I typically ask this question, and it just amazes me at some of their answers. What is your favorite blend that you have done that is no longer available to the consumer?
I would say that the winter blend that we made, I would say that was one of my favorite blends, and we don't have that cigar available to the consumer anymore. I think that was a good 7 years ago that we released that, when we came out with the whole autumn, spring, winter series. And it's hard to get. That was a limited amount of tobacco that we had from the special farm, and so I think that's probably the favorite blend of cigar that we don't make anymore. And then second would be the Super Forte under the Indian Tobacco Cigar Company that we used to make. That was also a very sweet blend that we don't make anymore.
I had never had that one. So
yeah, that goes back way before your time.
Hey, look, I got gifted a 50th anniversary cigar not too long ago, And if I'm not mistaken, that hasn't been sold in a while, right?
No, I mean we come out with it, every so often. We only made several thousand boxes of that cigar. That's got a special Habano wrapper from Ecuador. It's a box pressed oily cigar with a lot of flavor. And first we released it in 20 count boxes, and now we have re-released it in 10 count boxes. But we only make limited amounts of that cigar, so if you can find it, get your hands on it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, like I said, somebody gifted it to me. It was like, Jack, I want you to have this. You know how it is when you're in the industry. You get a lot of those gifts.
Absolutely.
Well, it's good to, if you don't get a lot of those gifts, you need to do a self-reflection, because that means you're not a good person. So kind of going off the road a little bit. Just all of the other stuff that I wanted to get into. What can we expect in 2022?
Well, I've been working for the last 2 years on several projects. We're going to have 2 new releases that I can't talk about yet. They will be out sometime right before the trade show in June or July. I'm excited about that. So, look for it. But in the meantime, enjoy the 60th, enjoy the white label, enjoy the ride of the Disciple, and then it'll be like 6, 7, 8 months before we release anything else.
You typically do about 2 or 3 a year, correct?
Yeah, we do about 2 or 3 new releases every year. I mean, I enjoy it. People go, "Oh, you got so many different cigars. You got so many different cigars," and it's not intentionally that we do it. It's just I love blending tobacco, and when we come up with something good, we want to share it with everybody. It's not like, oh, we got to do this and we got to do it. If it's good, and sometimes it's like, wow, it's so good, and then we work on it. We just like to share with everybody.
So out of the 2 that you're going to release prior to trade, well, it'll be released at the trade show, correct?
Well, probably a little bit before.
Okay. So are those going to, I know it's probably not going to be a mild, right?
No, they won't be mild. They won't be mild.
So definitely, Habano, some type of Habano wrapper, some type of Maduro wrapper.
Yeah, I can't tell you. It's a little secret. There's some special tobaccos in there that most people don't use for filler. And I've been working on that blend for the last 8, 9 months now, and just getting ready to perfect it.
So when it comes to something coming out, like I follow a lot of John Hubert's processes. Well, not processes, but kind of the things that he does. So that talking with Michael during his experience as well. How many cigars do you and your validation team roughly smoke prior to it coming out?
Oh gosh, I mean, we'll make anywhere between 100 to 125 different blends, and then we'll identify 3 of them that we like, and then I'll just work and change and play around with the different primings and the fillers. We'll change and play around the binders, sometimes the wrappers. And that process takes 1.5 years to 2 years. And then you have to let the cigars age, and they smoke differently in 12 weeks than they do, in 3 months and 6 months. And so it's a long process that we work on before we actually, finalize the blend and perfect it.
So I based off of pretty much everything I've heard tonight, it is safe to say that when blend, even for a private label or want to come out with your own cigar, it takes time, right? I mean, it takes time and resources, and smoking that cigar over time, letting it sit for 6 months and then smoking it again, right?
Absolutely, it's really a lesson in patience. It takes a lot of time. And you can't just rush, like the Fuente said, you can't rush the hands of time, and you really can't. And you just got to wait, and then, you have to wait till the humidity is gone from the cigar and it smokes differently than when you get it right off the rolling table. And it's also interesting, cigars taste differently in Honduras and Nicaragua. I think a lot of it has to do with the altitude than they do when we bring them back home. The cigars are much more moist and more humid when we smoke them right off the tables in Honduras and Nicaragua, and I think they taste sweeter then after the humidity is gone. So, it changes over time so much that a cigar that you initially thought was great might not necessarily be as good 6 months later.
Yeah, that's so kind of starting to wrap up a little bit. I know you're busy, and I would definitely want you to get out of that cold San Diego weather, whatever that means. Whatever cold is defined by.
It's like 50. It's like 52 degrees here. I'm sitting
Really?
in the front porch of one of my good friends' homes that I'm visiting. And there's nowhere to smoke here in LA. It's crazy. In Florida, we're so used to being able to go everywhere, whether it's a restaurant, bar, inside, outside, smoke cigars. Here, it's like total socialism. You can't smoke anywhere. It's ridiculous.
I thought is it just that county? Is it Los Angeles?
No, it's
County?
all of Los Angeles. All of Los Angeles. You can't smoke. They frown on you. You can't smoke anywhere here.
But don't they got a marijuana restaurant out there where
Well,
you can smoke
that's different. Yeah, you can smoke weed everywhere, but you just can't smoke cigars.
The confusion and how it all just plays a part is just hilarious to me.
What this world is coming to is crazy. It's just nuts. Just nuts.
Just freaking crazy. So kind of wrapping up, looking at everything you have done, right? I just want to tell you thank you, right? Thank you for all the hard work you are to not only protect us as retailers, but protecting even other manufacturing companies in your work and dedication with everything that you're doing with the senates and the different representatives and anything like that. I'm going to ask you a question on air, and it really has a lot to do with me. What is one advice that you can give to a small retailer like me that's looking to expand, and reaching my goals and aspirations in life?
Well, I think the most important thing is, stay true to your consumers. Make sure you listen to them when they ask you, what they want to smoke. The first question I would ask them is, hey, what do you like, a mild, medium, full-bodied cigar? And then, they may say that I like a mild cigar. And then I would ask them, well, what do you consider mild? Because sometimes what they think is mild is not necessarily mild.
Yeah.
So to get them on the right cigar. And then also to make sure that you encourage them to try other cigars, because there are many great cigars being made by many great manufacturers out there, and to diversify their taste profile. And I think you have to focus on the relationship that you cultivate and build with them, and gain their trust. Have a great store, have a clean store, think outside the box. The whole point of enjoying cigars is camaraderie. It brings people together from around the world, regardless of race, religion, cultural diversity. Whether you're a blue-collar worker, whether you're an attorney, whether you're an athlete, it brings people of all types together, and that's the beauty about a premium cigar. And so, have unique events. Whether it's going out to a ball game together, whether it's a fishing trip, a hunting trip, do different things, barbecues, poker games, whatever, whiskey tastings, bourbon tastings, pairings, be imaginative, think outside the box, keep that community, grow that community, make it fun and enjoyable for your customers, make them feel like they're part of one big family. And that's the relationship and bond that you create with your fellow consumers that will keep them coming back, and provide the great humidor with great consistent service and quality, keep it in good shape, and that loyalty will come back tenfold.
Absolutely. Well, Rocky, we appreciate you so much with all the gems that you dropped. I'm going to ask for one more, though. It doesn't have to be about cigars. It don't have to be about, business or anything like that. One thing we like to do on the virtual smoke deck is just give one gem, even though you gave a lot, but one more gem that's specific for the consumers. what is one thing that you would like to, or the viewers for that matter, just one thing that you want them to take away from this interview for anybody watching or going to be watching in the future?
Listen, I think we're blessed to have a beautiful traditional cottage industry that is so unique, that has such an impact on the world, that creates relationships. You can be sitting next to a guy in an airplane or anywhere else, and you tell him you're a fellow cigar smoker, you automatically create a new friend. And the kinship and that bond is so amazing, and we want to keep that alive. And I urge you all, please join Cigar Rights of America. The website is cigarrights.org. 100% of the money that we raise, we write big checks, six-figure checks every year to Cigar Rights of America, and all that money is used to protect your fundamental right and privilege to smoke cigars, to try and beat down these egregious laws from the FDA, outrageous state taxes, anti-smoking legislation, because our enemies have deep pockets. They're very organized, and they're basically fascists. I mean, whether it's Tobacco Free Kids, American Lung Association, American, Cancer Association, Society, they all want to abolish tobacco from the face of the planet. They don't distinguish and differentiate premium cigars from cigarettes or other tobacco products, and we want to keep this beautiful art form alive. So please join that. It's very important. Stay healthy, stay safe, and hope to see you down the road somewhere and enjoy a cigar with you.
Man, Rocky Patel, it was a pleasure, man. You are essentially going to go down in history, in the cigar history period, and in the cigar world. Just mark my words on it. I appreciate you so much taking the time out your busy day to sit down and have a conversation with us on the virtual smoke deck. I know a lot of people don't get this opportunity, so I'm cherishing. This is one that I hold near and dear to my heart. So again, I appreciate you. Stay put. I do have just a small sidebar conversation I want to have with you offline. But with that being said, I appreciate you, Rocky.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure being with you, and thank you. And stay healthy and safe out there, everybody.
Absolutely. I love the virtual smoke deck, man. Everything that we have going on, getting back in front of this camera and just to talk with people like Rocky and, all the other masterminds in this industry is just amazing. It's just amazing feeling. I can't even lie. Sitting down with some of the people I sit down with, I'd be like, damn, how me? But anyway, if you're new to the virtual smoke deck, man, go ahead, and you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit that like button. Click the follow button. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like, the subscribe, and give us a huge thumbs up, man. I appreciate you guys for everything that you are doing, all the support that you have offered. Again, this is our last episode, and I repeat, this is our last episode for the year. We will be coming back on January 2nd with a very special guest, as well as our very special new co-host that's going to be co-hosting the segment with us. Is going to definitely be a big change from what you're used to in this arena. But the person that we're bringing in, I guarantee you're going to love them. I'm Jack the Cigar Enthusiast. Y'all have a great day and stay smoky. I'm gone.